Good morning and welcome back to my channel. My name is Heidi and this is My Reading Life. I'm here today to film another Tags in Cars video. This is Wednesday morning before work. It's raining out, and so I am trying to get this done before I go to work, and this was the only place I had to film this morning. So the tag video that I want to film today is the mid-year book freakout tag. I was kindly tagged by Sean the Book Maniac. This is, of course, the end of June. This tag has been everywhere all over Booktube, and I wanted to join in the fun and get my video up before the end of the month. So let's just get to it so I can get to work. The first question is the best book you've read so far this year. I, of course, couldn't narrow it down to just one, so I've picked the best fiction and then the best nonfiction, and had hard enough time to get it down that far. So the best fiction book that I've read so far this year is A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza. I read this for the Booktube Prize earlier this year and just absolutely loved it. The narrative of a family, a Muslim family in America, being torn apart by expectations that they've placed on one another, was just a beautiful story. I really, really loved it. And the best nonfiction book I've read so far this year. This was a tough one to narrow it down. I've read a ton of really good nonfiction so far this year, but I chose at this moment Thick and Other Essays by Tressie McMillan Cotton. I love a good essay collection, especially about current cultural issues and social justice themes and political issues. And Thick really hit all of my buttons in a very humorously and well-written manner. I highly, highly recommend, especially on audiobook. The best sequel that I've read so far this year, probably surprising no one who watches this channel, is Dark in Death by J.D. Robb. I have been reading the J.D. Robb series forever. It is a sort of quasi-science fictional suspense series, and I just love the main character, Detective Eve Dallas, as she solves crimes in a near-future New York City. Third question is the new release you haven't read yet but want to. I've recently purchased The Good Immigrant USA, edited by Nikesh Shukla and Chamine Suleiman. And this is the United States version of a collection of essays that was published in the UK, I believe, a couple of years ago by different immigrant voices. And considering current political problems that we're having in the United States, this seems like a very important book for me to read soon. Question 4 is, what is my most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And for this one, I have to thank Sarah over at Hardcover Hearts, who mentioned in her video that the new Louise Penny book is coming out. I think she said at the end of August, which I am so, so excited about. I love the Inspector Gamache mystery series. I usually listen to those on audio the minute they come out. And I don't imagine this will be any exception, so I am thrilled to hear that a new Louise Penny book is coming out in August, and it is my most anticipated release at this moment. The biggest disappointment that I had so far this year was The Court Dancer by Kyung-Suk Shin. You'll all remember that Doris and I buddy read this, I think, in January, and yeah, that was a real disappointment. I had purchased that as a new hardcover and was really looking forward to it, and yeah, it did not live up to my expectations. Question 6 is my biggest surprise of the year, and I'm gonna say my biggest surprise was a book that I had tried to read a few years ago and had put down for whatever reason, and so I picked it back up again this year during Black History Month, and that was The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. And when I picked it back up for the second time, it was a 5-star read for me. So I don't know what my issues were a few years ago when I tried to read Henrietta Lacks, but when I read it this year, I just absolutely loved this story of how a woman's cervical cells were taken without her knowledge and still exist today and are still used today in medical research. Just an absolutely mind-blowing story, and the humanity in that story was something to really mention as well, because the author doesn't just talk about the science aspects of taking somebody's cells and using them without their knowledge, without consent, but also looks at the family, the extended family of Henrietta Lacks up until the present day, and how this action taken on their mother impacted the whole family. Excellent, excellent narrative nonfiction. 7 is favorite new author, and for this I'm picking Michelle Obama and her book Becoming, because it was tied for my most favorite nonfiction book of the year, and I wanted to fit it in here somewhere, and Michelle Obama, I think, is an amazing author. Like, the woman is just good at everything, it seems like, and she has a wonderful authorial voice. You would not necessarily, not every person who is famous has a good writing style, but Michelle Obama definitely does. I listen to Becoming on audio, and she reads it herself, and that just adds to the story that she's telling. It's just an amazing memoir. There's a reason why it's the best-selling memoir of all time at this moment, and if you haven't read it yet, I would highly recommend it. Question 8 is newest fictional crush. No. Question 9, newest favorite character. For this, I'm picking Matthew Shardlake, which he is the main character of a historical mystery series that takes place in the Tudor period, written by C.J. Sansom. I started reading this series for the first time this year. I've read the first one earlier in this year, and Disillusion is the first one. I had a moment where I couldn't remember it, and just recently read Darkfire as a buddy read, and really enjoy this historical mystery series. The period details are fabulous, and Matthew Shardlake as a person struggling with ethics and morality in that time period is just, it's a fascinating, he's a fascinating character, and the stories are excellent. So I'm looking forward to continuing that series and continuing to learn more about Matthew Shardlake. Question 10, book that made you cry. And so for this one, I am picking a book that I just recently read, and I don't believe I've even wrapped up yet on this channel, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is a romance novel about the first son of the United States president falling in love with one of the princes from the United Kingdom, and what that would be like if two guys in their 20s who were members of very important political families fell in love. And this book not only made me cry, but it made me laugh. It just gave me all the feels. It is an entirely adorable story, but I spent like the last, I don't know, 50 pages or so alternately laughing and crying. So it was definitely a book that made me cry. Question 11, a book that made you happy. I have picked Everything's Trash, But It's Okay by Phoebe Robinson, because if you go back to the video in which I wrapped up this basically comedy memoir by Phoebe Robinson, you will find me laughing while I'm trying to talk about it, because even just thinking about this book makes me laugh. And if you like smart, funny, snarky women, I have got to recommend Phoebe Robinson. Her books are just amazing, and I love them. Question 12, favorite book to film adaptation that you've seen this year. And for that, there's no question. I don't watch a lot of movies, but this one stands out by 100 miles from anything else that I've watched recently, and that is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. I watched this film with my daughter a few months ago, and it was amazing. I mean, the book was amazing. It was one of my favorite books of the year that I read it in. There's a reason why it's garnered so much attention. And the film, while not completely 100%, it doesn't 100% follow the story of the book. It still remains true to the central points of the story, and it's just an amazingly well acted movie. It really is important. It's telling us an important story, a necessary story in our current cultural time period, and it's just an amazing film. I can't recommend that one highly enough either. Question 13 is favorite Booktube video that I've made this year, and I went back through and sort of scanned quickly through the list of videos that I've made, and I guess I don't really have one that's a favorite of mine so far this year. Question 14, the most beautiful book I've bought or received this year, and for that I am choosing Silver People by Margareta Engel. This was a book that I picked up when I was buddy reading The Path Between Two Seas, the book about the Panama Canal with Doris and Patrice. They had both recommended that I try this book, Silver People, which is a middle grade novel written in verse. And it tells the story of the actual people who built the Panama Canal, the West Indian immigrants that came to Panama to labor in digging the hole that would become the Panama Canal. And it is absolutely heartbreaking but beautiful, beautiful piece of work, where not only the voices of these marginalized characters are given, front and center stage, but also the voices of the wildlife that's being destroyed by this development in Panama. It was really amazing and had an absolutely beautiful cover. And question 15, books that I need to read by the end of the year. Of course, as many other people who have filmed this video have said, there are no books that I need to read by the end of the year. Obviously, I don't read books for a living, sadly. Would be happy to do so should anybody be willing to pay me for that activity. So the fact of the matter is, none of these books I need to read, but I do have some books scheduled to be read for the next month or so, and those are some buddy reads that I have already planned and scheduled out. And so I'll just mention those here. So in July, I plan to read When I Was Puerto Rican with Alba over at Seriella, who's organizing a buddy read for that. I'm planning to read Barkskins with Natalie from My Reading Days, and I'm planning to read The Warmth of Other Suns with Patrice and with Doris. So those are some books that I'm planning to read. I obviously will be doing other buddy reads before the end of the year, and who knows where my reading will take me. This was a very fun video, so I thank Sean again for tagging me. I love these mid-year check-in videos, and I've been very much enjoying watching everybody else's. So I'm not going to tag anybody specifically because this has been, it's really been going around. But if you are watching this and you would like to answer these questions, please do. Film your own version and let me know down below that you've done so that I can come watch it. And I hope that you're all doing well. And until the next time, I'll talk with you later.